Hello, otaku, and welcome. After a very long absence, I've returned with an all-new anime review, and without any further ado, let's get to the fan service. Wait, what? Today we'll be discussing the animated movie Expelled from Paradise. Expelled from Paradise is a sci-fi anime movie released in November of 2014 with a runtime of 1 hour and 44 minutes, written by Gen Urobuchi and directed by Seiji Mizushima. With that out of the way, let's get to the review. The movie begins with our protagonist relaxing on the beach. Seconds into the movie, she's approached by a horrible walking stereotype who asks her if she would prefer to go to his private server instead of this public server. She tells him that she's actually working at the moment, and no sooner have the words left her mouth than the shit hits the fan. The water stands still, and the world starts to malfunction as what appears to be a digital black hole appears over the water, and a mysterious voice offers the people of Deva an escape from the digital world that they have known for their entire lives. Our protagonist materializes a computer in an attempt to fight off the hacker, and her real name is revealed. Angela. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Balzac. Angela Balzac. That's really her name. Angela stops the hacker in an incredibly cliche visual representation of cyberspace before being called back to Deva headquarters. There she receives orders from these talking statues who appear to be deities from ancient cultures, telling her to go to Earth, find and deal with the hacker. In order to go to the physical world, she'll obviously need a physical body, and for reasons completely relevant to the plot, she ends up with a 16-year-old's body. The rest of the story's exposition is explained to us over a lackluster combat simulation at the same time that Angela is hearing it herself. At this point, she is informed by a computerized voice that upon reaching Earth, she'll need to rendezvous with an agent named Dingo to help her complete her mission. At this point, we're only about 10 minutes into the movie, which leads me to believe that the author really didn't care about the story that he was writing, or he had something else in mind and didn't feel that the exposition was all that important. It's difficult to say as the later stages of the film do have more philosophical themes, but honestly, it feels like it could just be a cop-out for writing a fleshed-out story. I personally think that it's just lazy writing, as many of the philosophical themes expressed in the movie have been prevalent in the sci-fi genre since Ghost in the Shell. I definitely would not recommend this movie based on the plot, but we'll touch more on that as we go along, so let's get into the characters. I think it's fair to say that there are only 3 characters in this movie, because anyone beyond these 3 characters has no type of developed personality whatsoever. For starters, we have our protagonist, Angela Balzac. Angela is a digitized human who has never actually lived on Earth. Instead, she's spent her life in Deva, the digital world, which was apparently created after the Earth was turned into one giant desert. Angela works with security for Deva, thus giving her the job of hunting down the hacker. As far as personality, she's pretty much your generic tsundere, so she doesn't really have any kind of distinguishing characteristics in that regard. Her character really only seems to serve 2 purposes, one of which being fan service, and the other we'll get into a little bit later. Next up, we have Dingo. Dingo is an Earthling who is working with Deva on this job, but seems to harbor some resentment for them overall. He's a down-to-earth, hard-working guy with old-fashioned values, which is a stark contrast to the machine-like Angela. Before we get to the third character, I have to explain a little bit more of the story. Okay, this is where the spoilers start, so if you want to watch the movie completely blind, then click away now and come back later. Alright, if you're still here, I assume that means you don't care about spoilers, so let's get into this. After some minor events, our heroes finally find who they're looking for, but is it a who or a what? That's right, they find out that the hacker they've been looking for all this time is actually a rogue AI. This AI turns out to be our third character in the movie, calling himself Frontier Setter. Frontier Setter feels like less of a character and more of a way of promoting philosophical questions in the later stages of the film. This brings me back around to the second point that I was going to make about Angela. Her character also seems to be almost nothing but promoting these philosophical questions. In fact, the entire movie seems to be a vehicle just to display these ideas. The most prevalent question being, what makes us human? I'm really disappointed that they took the cliche route and went with the "oh, what is humanity" ending in a futuristic setting where one of the characters is basically a machine and the machine is more human than she is. But I guess you have to make money somehow. Some of the other philosophical ideas of this movie kind of boil down to moral questions, so I'm not really going to get into those too much. I'm not going to spoil the ending for you or anything, but if you're looking for a good story, you could do better somewhere else. Lastly, I wanted to talk about the art, and I have to say I actually thoroughly enjoyed it, which is kind of strange for the fact that it's 3D animation, and I'm generally not a big fan, but they did it pretty well. They did really well with keeping the 3D models moving fluidly and still making them look two-dimensional and fit into the backgrounds. If there was any basis on which I would recommend this movie, it would definitely be the animation. It is by far the best quality of this entire film. And that's really all the points I had, so it's time for the final statements. And really all I have to say is I saw a lot more potential in this movie than it actually lived up to, which is disappointing, but I'm used to seeing that these days, and especially in the sci-fi genre, so it's really no surprise. My final rating on this movie would have to be a 5 out of 10, and I give it that almost exclusively because I enjoyed the animation and I enjoyed the general aesthetics of the movie. Based on plot, characters, all of that, definitely wouldn't give it above a 3, but that's my opinion, and I'd like to hear yours in the comments. Rate, comment, and subscribe if you liked the video, and I'll see you next time.